I think we're still missing someone, Ben. I don't know who it is. So I'm excited about Wider Quaker World because we get to go way beyond St. Petersburg, Florida, into what happens all over the world that Quaker supporting and leading and so forth. So my first contact is with Bill Chambers, who is a board member serving on finance and personnel committees as a member of the Charlotte and a member of the Charlotte Friends Meeting. Hey, Ben. I was encouraged to contact Ben through Mary Jo Klingel, who tells me that he's absolutely wonderful and that we will enjoy having him here. Not live up to just the truth. What can I say? Quaker House, I don't know what your name is. Could you tell me?
I forgot your name. I'm Steve Woolford.
Okay, so Steve is a GI Rights Network counselor on Quaker House staff. He provides confidential counseling to military personnel and their families about conscientious objection and other discharges, as well as members' rights and grievance procedures. And the third person, who is not yet here, is Bill O'Connor. Bill is assistant clerk of the board and a member of Durham Friends Meeting. And I think, Bill, you just arrived. I spoke your name and there you are on the screen. Yay. Okay, so Quaker House serves the military. And I think this is a really important topic for us to be aware of, particularly in these always perilous times. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ben, and y'all can do what you do. I suggest that we all put ourselves on mute except for the panel of our three gentlemen. And that way we won't be disturbing what they have to say.
Thank you so much, Susan. And we are really excited to join you all here today. We really appreciate your invitation. As highly as Mary Jo Klingel speaks of me, apparently, she speaks even more highly of the St. Pete's meeting. So I'm really glad to join you. What I want to do is just share sort of a very brief presentation. It's sort of 6 or 7 slides, not a ton of stuff, just to walk through Quaker House and our mission and our work. So that's clear, as well as sort of highlighting a few ways you can get involved if anyone here is led to do that after we finish today. And then I'm really going to sort of zoom back out and invite any questions and discussions and comments that might be there. And we have Steve and Bill who can provide an excellent sense of sort of just the day-to-day stories of what the impact of Quaker House's work really looks like, as well as a sense of the history to the extent that folks. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen. I know it looks like there are a group of folks in the meeting house, and I don't know how big the screen is that you have there, so you may or may not be able to see this well, but I'm really going to be sort of talking through things at a high level. So even if you're not able to see all the words, I think that'll be just fine. So let me just take a quick minute to do that. Oh. Susan, it looks like I'm not able to share my screen. It looks like I get a message that says the host hasn't enabled me to do that.
Okay, our host is setting that up as we speak.
Okay.
And there is a giant screen. There's a giant screen okay. In the annex. The other thing I thought to mention is that if you would say who you are when you speak and also initially where you're from, that would be very nice, especially the people in the annex can barely see. At least I can barely see you. Okay. So just speak your name before you speak, and if you'd raise your hands, I will call on you. That would be helpful.
We should be good to go.
Okay. So thank you again. Going to try and sort of change this around a little bit. So Quaker House's mission. We are based in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is the home of Fort Bragg. And that's very important to us because working with members of the military as we do, it's become a real, it's always been important to be close to where military members are. And through some aspects of our programming that I'll talk about in a second, we've really been able to build some meaningful partnerships with the base, even as we're advocating in ways in other parts of our program that they may not agree with. We've been able to sort of build some meaningful partnerships there in a way that allow us to support service members in deeper and deeper ways. We provide counseling and support to service members who are questioning their roles in the military. So a lot of that is Steve Woolford's work with our GI Rights Network. And I'll speak about that in a second, and certainly he can share stories about that. But we also have counseling for military members and their families relating to the issues of domestic violence that's often a consequence of trauma that folks serving encounter, around moral injury, which I'll speak a bit more about, and other sort of very, very intense issues that folks are finding very challenging. So we have a licensed clinical social worker who we contract with to see a certain number of folks experiencing those issues. We provide education for military members, their families, and the public about military issues, a wide range of them, including moral injury, as I mentioned, as well as sort of conscientious objection and how that works and what it means. Not all folks are aware of it. And then finally, we spend time advocating for a more peaceful world. So this is really engaging with elected officials, writing letters to the editor, those kinds of activities, specifically around issues that relate to building peace in the world in a really concrete way. The GI Rights Hotline is a network that is independent of Quaker House, but Quaker House, through the 2 counselors that we have on staff, answers about a third of the calls that come into that hotline. And they do just a wide range of things. I've put a few bullets here just to give a sense of some of the things they work with. But as Steve can attest, that list is sort of ever expanding and ever changing. So they'll work with folks who are in the military and have come to a point of deciding they need to exit the military as a conscientious objector. So there is a process that the military has to sort of adjudicate those kinds of issues. And the GI Rights Hotline can really walk people through that process from an independent perspective. You know, one thing I've become more and more aware of is just how many rights and privileges that folks who are not in the military have that folks give up when they join and serve. And so this one example of that is just sort of the ability to get independent advice that you trust. And GI Rights Network, the GI Rights Hotline provides that. Certainly within the military, there are, this comes up fairly often in the press, but it's sort of a constant ongoing issue. Issues of harassment and discrimination that are ongoing, where people are suffering. They can call the GI Rights Network and say, here's what's happening to me, sort of what can I do, or what can be done about this. If folks are currently absent without leave or on an unauthorized absence, that's the UA there, they can get advice from the GI Rights Network about sort of what their options are and how to proceed. And then certainly we've seen periods where the National Reserves are mobilized to active duty, and that often occasions some frequent issues where people go from a role of, well, this sort of active service was always there in theory, but now it's here in practice. And there are some things about the experience that don't, that are really causing a problem. And the Rights Network is there to provide advice on those kinds of issues. As I mentioned, we have a counselor, a licensed clinical social worker, who has been wonderful for us to work with. She sees a certain number of clients and is on contract to do that, and really focuses on the issues of domestic violence within families of military members and veterans, sexual assault, and moral injury. Although again, for her, those core issues often spin off in very different kinds of directions. So as she talks about her work, we're always sort of mindful of how she might begin working with a client in one place and end up in a very different one. In terms of our education, there are a few things that Quaker House educates around. One of those is peace and just sort of what that means, and sort of issues attached to peace that emerge over time. So for a while, Quaker House was very involved in advocating around the prohibition of torture by the military and by the US government. That was a space that many folks never thought they would have to be in before those issues came up in the wake of 9/11. But there we were. And also sort of thinking about nonviolent methods of interaction and how to move forward nonviolently. Quaker House very much takes the Quaker in its name seriously. And so much of our work is an outgrowth of the peace and nonviolence testimonies that are very close to Quakers' hearts. The second is the call of conscience. So many people don't understand entirely how conscientious objection works or what it means, what is required to sort of document conscientious objection, particularly for young adults who would be either vulnerable to being recruited into the military in ways that are misleading, and also if there were ever a draft reinstated to folks who would be vulnerable to that draft as well. And then finally, we talked quite a bit about moral injury. And this is a little bit distinct from PTSD. Moral injury is, I'm going to sort of give a lay definition. Bill and Steve may have more to share on it. It's really the sense of injury that it comes from being forced to act against your moral convictions. It's the damage done from being put into that situation. And certainly the military is one area where this is much more widely experienced than anyone would like. But even other professions these days, I'm hearing more and more about moral injury. For example, in the medical profession, through the restrictions and the experience of responding to COVID-19, there are many doctors and nurses who've started to talk about the real damage done from not being able to act according to the values they have in their profession from a wide range of circumstances. So moral injury, we certainly talk about it in the context of the military, but I just want to note that it is a sort of broader phenomenon than that as well. And then finally, we have the advocacy element of what we do. So we have had groups of people will meet regularly at the Quaker House house when that was possible. So pre-COVID, would meet regularly to talk about different strategies and ways of reaching out to elected officials and making our voices heard. They were often sort of in contact and coordination with FCNL, so we can talk more about what that looks like for those of you familiar with the organization. But we really value this as sort of an authentic part and a very core part of our mission for over 50 years now. And then finally, before I come back and open back up as a group, I want to talk about a few ways to just sort of get a little bit more involved in our work if you're led to do that after today's session. So first, there's just learning more about our work. Susan was very kind to provide a link to our website in the notice for this session. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up for there that would keep you regularly up to date on sort of what we're doing and what we're thinking about and what we're seeing happening in the world. Two, if you're able to give financially, we certainly appreciate that. We are, as a member of the Finance Committee, I will say we are constantly thoughtful of how to put those resources to the best possible use. And we are blessed to have a wide range of folks who give both as a whole meeting sometimes or as individuals within a meeting. So both of those are really wonderful experiences for us and ways to deepen our relationships with folks across the country and around the world. And then finally, Like any good Quaker organization, Quaker House has a number of committees and opportunities to serve in those if you'd like, and we can talk more about those in our discussion if anyone is interested, or after today if you're interested. And we have the ability to work towards opening up seats on our board for folks who are interested and where that fit is right. Quaker House has a group of meetings that are given a certain number of sort of board seats that they can choose to select members from and attenders from within their groups to put on the Quaker House board. But we also have a certain number of at-large seats. So even if you're not one of those sort of core meetings, that's just fine. We can figure out a way to get you included. So if you have experience with the military or with loved ones who have experience with the military and are feeling these issues very closely, or for whatever reason want to sort of get more involved in how we do our work, that would be a great avenue open to you. That's really all that I have from the perspective of just me talking. So I'm going to come back to the full group now. And again, I want to thank you so much for your attention there, and would really welcome any questions that anyone has. And if there aren't any, that's also fine. Between Steve, Bill, and I, we can continue to find things to share and talk about for you. So Susan, I think I may come back to you now, if that's okay, to sort of facilitate that with us.
Okay, Steve and Bill, I would love it if you would give us a little bit of information about specifically what each of you do. Bill, you lean forward. Why don't you begin?
I was just adjusting my seat. Okay, and we'll leave plenty of time for Steve and for questions. My name's Bill O'Connor. I am a member and attender at Durham Friends Meeting in Durham, North Carolina. And I have many good experiences in St. Petersburg, including having some refreshments on the beach behind the Don Cesar and going to the Salvador Dali Museum. And right now it's 19 degrees here, so I hope you're enjoying the nice weather. I'm the former clerk of the board. I'm still a board member. I've been in North Carolina for 40 years, originally from New York. So thank you very much for having us. Ben did a great job, and I'm sure you will want to hear more about the specific programs. We're at a very exciting time now at Quaker House. We've just taken on a new executive director with lots of new energy. Our programs are going on strong, the counseling and the GR Rights Hotline and advocacy and publications and things like that. I'm putting into the chat some links. Let me do this now. There are a lot of web resources available that I wonder if you would be able to share with your meeting. Of course, we have our web page and our Facebook page. There's an email address in case one wants to get in touch with us. And there are several videos that are up on YouTube from Quaker House. And I'd like to speak for just a minute about the first one. It's called COs in Today's Military, Conscientious Objectors. This is a recent video that we just made. It's over an hour long. And it has interviews with 4 service members, active service members who decided they were conscientious objectors and applied for CO status. And I think most of them have succeeded. Steve can get us up to date on that. But one of the 4 is a Muslim woman who in the Air Force whose job was dispatching aircraft loaded with drones and bombs and things from, I think, somewhere in the United States. I'm not sure. And she was feeling moral injury over that and decided that she was a conscientious objector. And I believe her petition was successful. Another one was a young man who was just about to graduate or had graduated from West Point and decided that he wasn't going to go through with it and wasn't going to take his commission in the Army. He's going to have to pay back all his tuition, but he's very sincere about that and conscientious. And another one was a young African-American man who enlisted and right during basic training quickly decided that this was not something he could do, and he was also appealing. The other resources, there's a very nice 50th anniversary video from a couple of years ago. And there is a short piece of our former director, Kendra Bradley, testifying in front of the Selective Service Commission hearings 2 years ago. And another good Quaker Speak video with Steve and Lenore Yarger Steve Woolford and Lenore Yarger talking about the GI Rights Hotline. So if you want to hear more about us, there are lots of opportunities to do that. So I'll stop there and maybe turn it over to Steve. And then if you have questions or things you'd like to say, there you go. Steve.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for having us here today. I've never been to St. Petersburg, but I've met people from there. Everyone I've met from there gives me the impression that it has a completely different feel than the way the rest of your state shows up in the media. It is portrayed. So I guess you're an enclave of this or whatever. Anyway, I was going to note the three of us here today are all guys, but I don't want you to get the perception that Quaker House is all guys. There's actually tons of, this is purely coincidence. I share the counseling job I do with my wife, Lenore, and she just, she has another meeting this morning, and there are a lot of really great women involved in the board and involved in other ways. So just so you know that if you're looking at the three of us and thinking that that's it. So I really appreciate, I would just want to say thanks to Ben and Bill, who have been great board members. Bill has been around practically forever and been a real force of stability in the organization. Ben has done tons of work helping us kind of vision long-term plans of where we're going and make sense of things, and really did a lot to put together a strategic plan for where we're going. I like to start by just saying I love being a GI rights counselor. I'm one piece of one of our programs, but I love what I'm doing. And so I'm so appreciative for all the ways different people here contribute to make this happen. And in one sense, I'm really lucky in that I get to be sort of the face of the organization for a whole lot of people. I'm the person they talk to more often than not. It's actually the voice rather than the face. There's a lot of people we only ever talk on the phone or through email, and they never even see what each other looks like. So when those people thank Quaker House, oftentimes I'm the one that gets the thanks. So one thing I thought I'd just read here, Bill mentioned that video, which I think the one with the conscientious objectors, I think is one of the best things we've put together. And I will say, if you watch it, even if you don't have the whole hour, if you just watch Chris, who's the first person, I think he just sums up what a person of conscience would face in the military. And it's great. It can just open your eyes right away to what people are struggling with. I think is, first, 7 minutes is just amazing. So Bill was talking about some of the people in that. I was going to read a letter I got just towards the end of December from one of those people. If you're looking for follow-up, he says, sir, and he's the West Point guy. He always wanted to call me sir, even though I call him identity too. He says, sir, as I complete my second to last day in the Army, I wanted to take a minute to thank the people most responsible for helping me get here. You and Lenore have been such a massive help to me, and your support has been greatly appreciated. I can barely put into words how thankful I am for the countless hours you spent discussing my beliefs over the phone, helping me edit numerous versions of my personal statement, and continuing to lend a hand during the hearings and approval process. I think the world of you and the work that you do on a daily basis continues to motivate me to be a better person and to live up to the opportunities that your assistance has created for me. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to speak on the panel earlier this year. It means a lot to me that you viewed me that highly. Through my time, though my time in the Army is thankfully coming to an end, I hope we can continue to keep in touch. I wouldn't be where I am today without the work you do, and I'm forever grateful for the impact you've had on my life. I thought that was really sweet. I was thrilled to get that. And I think that Lenore and I really do get to do this great work, but we can only do it with a big team of behind the scenes support people who never get to hear those kinds of thank yous. So I like to pass that on to everybody who, especially those of you who participate in ways big and small in keeping this thing happening. So I think Bill and Ben really said a lot about kind of what our role is already. And if you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. I was maybe just going to try to say a couple things about just giving a sense of what we do and why it makes a difference. So you heard about the conscientious objection. We always, the conscientious, not everybody we work with is a conscientious objector, but a lot of people call us because we have a specialty there. And the process can take up to a year. So we usually have numerous cases at various stages in that pipeline. Right now, I'm working with several people who are just putting together their application, and other people who are awaiting approval, and people who are at stages in between. They're getting ready for their hearing. They're doing other kinds of things. And when someone comes to us, sometimes people get confused about it. We're not trying to talk people into becoming conscientious objectors. They're coming to us with already formed beliefs, and they want help getting out for those beliefs. And so our role is, there's a whole lot of pieces to it, but part of it is just listening to their story and helping them document their story in a way that's thorough enough that they're going to get approved. And almost everybody who comes to us that really meets the definition gets approved. And sometimes that means we talk about kind of putting them through the ringer. They'll write a draft, and we're like, this is a good start, but you're gonna have to say more. And then they're another draft, and we say, this is really good still, but you got to say more about this. You got to fill in more here, and making sure that story gets told well is a big part of what we do. You hear about people who maybe ghostwrite an autobiography for a sports figure because that person knows their sport, but they're not a writer. That's part of what we do with these applications. We aren't telling people you should believe this instead of this, but we're helping to, let's go through this and get more and more details and get all these down. And with most people, that even includes getting on the phone with them when we have something that we think is almost a finished product, and interviewing them and saying, okay, so here, at this point in training, what was that like when you felt that? Can we put more about that? What did you do next? And just really kind of fleshing out this whole story. And it's a really exciting thing because at the end, there are these beautiful stories of transformation. And at some point, I wish we can figure out a way to collect them, because the only people who see them are these people in their chain of command, and then they get approved and get out. And I feel like the rest of the world should hear about all these transformations that happen, because they're really amazing things. People who signed up totally believing they could do this job, and then realizing, wait, I can't be part of this. They're really dramatic stories. So that said, one of the cases I'm working on now, we did all those things, helping this person prepare, and then he got back a recommendation from his investigating officer. It was terrible. They had all these reasons why they said he should be rejected. And we write a rebuttal where we say, well, actually, those aren't the rules and the regulations. Actually, and this person said, this one person I work with, he wrote a paper. He's training to be a nuclear officer. He's taking college classes. And he wrote a paper for one of his engineering classes about, this is after his transformation, about why people shouldn't even work as civilians in any engineering capacity that would support the military. And the person who evaluated this said he didn't sound like he was against defense like a real conscientious objector would. And I'm thinking his professor thought this was the most strident anti-military paper he's ever seen from anybody in one of his classes. So part of what we do is just kind of write why all those things are wrong, right? Why this person, here's all the evidence for, here's why all these things should be thrown out and things like that. Then this person had a situation where after that, an officer, there's a process, but this commanding officer of his totally went outside of that and started asking him for all kinds of very private information. Like, I need to see all of your bank statements and all of your credit card reports and all these other things for me to evaluate this. And none of that's required, and none of that contributes anything. And he said at one point, well, I need to know that you've really given this money to charity that you say you have. But so I worked with a person, and I was like, we could send you, what do you have? He had these Venmo receipts where he'd given like $2,000 to different charities. It would be in line with his change in belief. And the officers were like, no, that's not good enough. And that kind of, so basically I helped him write a memo saying, what authorizes all this? I'm not sure where this is in the process. Can you give me like something? Because they were trying to do this kind of informally. I said, can you just put in writing what you're requesting and why and how that's justified? And, it was a simple but clear letter asking all those kinds of things. And then the person backed off, and he had been asking for other private information. He said, this form you're ordering me to fill out actually says it's voluntary on it. If it's voluntary, I'd rather not fill it out, right? And then the person backed off of that. Okay, yeah, you're right, that's voluntary. And we do in the GI Rights Network, we have a meeting once a month with full-time counselors like myself and Lenore, along with volunteer counselors. And people will bring up cases that they want to just discuss and maybe get help on. And we're often, it's a collaborative effort. One of our meetings was kind of short, and I sometimes try to just give pep talks. And I just said, I told people about all these ridiculous things that were happening, and they're all familiar. They're like, I can't believe they asked for that. I can't believe they. But the reminder was, there's all kinds of people out there that if they don't have a GI rights counselor saying, you don't have to do this, you have rights, and here's simple steps you can take to ensure you get those rights. If they don't have that, they just get bowled over. Another little example I could give, I'm working with a mother whose son is in basic training, and he's calling her and he's saying he's miserable, he wants to get out. And one of the problems with basic training is they take your phone away. You only get it for very limited time. So it's very hard to get communication back and forth to people in that situation. So we've put together kind of some guidelines for people in that situation. Here's successful ways to play the game that usually lead to discharge. Here's things that usually are dead ends and don't lead to discharge, just to kind of give them information. So we have things parents can send. But there's this question then of like, are they going to read the mail? And if you want to understand the military environment, imagine you're at boot camp and you have these people who order you around all day and scream at you and make you do extra push-ups and treat you terribly. And you get a letter and someone says, let me see that. Okay. You think you have to give it to them. So I educated this person. You can, maybe the first thing you write in there is, you do not have to show this to anybody. This is private mail. You don't have to give this to someone. If they say, let me see that, you can say, no, I want to keep this, this is private. They don't have any authorization to insist on reading your mail, but they get away with it because they seem so official and they seem, so directive, whatever. So there's all these little ways I think we're just kind of passing on to people what you need to do, what next steps might look like to get your situation taken care of, that they really don't get anywhere else. No one in the military is helping them with this process or helping them to figure this out. So maybe that's some kind of general things. I don't know if we should just have questions from you all. There's more specifics. Sure.
I'd like to remind people we have about 10 minutes left. These folks have given us a very rich background, and I very much appreciate each of you. So does anyone have anything they want to say or questions that they have? If you just kind of wave at me, that would be helpful. If you're in the annex, whoever's in the annex, would you please take charge and tell me who's waving, because I can't see you. You're very tiny. Oh, I can see Linda. Linda, why don't you begin?
I'm curious about how people even know you exist. How do people find you?
Yes.
Yes.
Most people who know about us probably heard about us through their meeting. Of course, we have a Facebook page and a web page, and we're hoping that those of St. Pete Quakers can help us with that. One of the things we would like to do would be to have a more robust sort of national presence. A lot of the meetings here in North Carolina know about us. Our former executive director, Kendra, and others before her have made trips to yearly meetings in various parts of the country, including California and Baltimore yearly meeting and New York yearly meeting. And so that's another way that we reach out, but we would certainly like more people to know about Quaker House.
Does that answer the question, Linda?
Yes.
Okay. Ben?
I'll go into I'll let other questions come up just so we have more time to talk. If that question's answered, that's great.
Okay. Herb?
I just wanted to tell a story that might add to your repertoire. As a civilian back in the 60s, I had real issues with the military. Today they'd be weird issues, but I had issues. And 20 years ago, I had to overcome those issues because my grandson was going to be born in Fort Bragg. And so I was a friend of Chuck Fager's, and I was invited to worship at Quaker House a few times. And silly as it was, Chuck almost literally held my hand all the way to the hospital so I could watch my grandson being born. I think I'm pretty much over it now. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. But I had trouble walking on the base, and without Chuck, it would have been, I don't know if I'd done it. But I'd let you know.
Thank you, Herb.
I have a question.
Yeah, Vicki?
Yeah, I'm about your finances. We hear a lot about some Quaker organizations being in dire or critical straits with their finances, particularly since the pandemic has hit, and Quakers in general are not back to normal yet. I'm the editor of a couple of newsletters, so if there are any appeals, if you're appealing if you're critically low on funding, you need this, that, or the other thing, I could advertise that. So I was just wondering where you're at. Do you need that extra help?
I'm not going to say no to any offers of support, but we've been pretty fortunate. Our donations have held fairly steady over the last year and a half. We have a lot of very committed supporters and people who do regular online donations. Our expenses have been considerably reduced over the last year and a half because we don't have as many travel expenses, since so many things like FGC and yearly meetings have been canceled or are online now. But we're a little anxious about the coming year. As things start to open up again, we'll be getting more active, and we're hoping that our donations will pick up also so that we can expand our programs. We have some ideas for establishing sort of satellite Quaker houses near other military bases around the country, and so many more things we'd like to do. So it's a time of increased energy, and we could definitely use some more support. But we're in stable condition right now, fortunately.
Thank you.
Laurie has her hand up.
Ben has his say.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo everything Bill noted there, and just ask, as we think about program expansion and opening back up and things we might want to do, would it be all right for us to get your contact information so that if we do have sort of such an appeal in mind over the next several months to a year, that we don't lose this opportunity to circle back with you? We can get that through season with you.
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I say
Steve?
something really quick about that as well? Okay. I'm not a fundraising expert, so maybe saying this is dire is the right pitch. I don't know what that, but I think what I would say is, I think this is a well-run organization, which is part of the reason why it's maybe not as dire, but still a good reason for people to support it. And I'd say even more, maybe the point where I see us connecting with people isn't that, hey, we're just really desperate, as much as I would say, I really believe we have a vision. Quaker House is a vision for a better world. And I think it's a good vision. And I think there's a lot of people out there who want to be part of that in some way and want to connect with it. And, some people don't even know about it, or some people don't know as much about it, but just kind of connecting with what we do and that vision of a better world might be as important to communicate as just sort of like, hey, they're really low on donations these last couple of months or something. Or I I don't know, you know, whoever or the fundraising people decide how to package that, I guess. So.
Thank you. There was somebody in the annex that
Yeah, Lord.
was.
I'm sorry, I came in quite late, and my question is there a way that Quaker House and consultation with conscientious objectors could keep those people in the military, but expand the military in its advocacy for peace, general building of safety nets, and I mean, is there an area in the military that focus? I mean, I know that there are doctors in the military, there are chaplains in the military. Are there areas where people could be directed? Because I think it's really important to keep the well-educated and conscientious people a part of the military. My dad was born in a military family, and I'm not, you know, I'm against war, but there are aspects of peacekeeping and infrastructure building and defense of, you know, the environment and all kinds of things. And I just wonder if there are areas of the military that people who are conscientiously against war and that kind of interaction could be directed, and it would maybe balance out the overall demographics of those in the military.
Thank you, Laura. Ben, I'm going to give you a chance to answer. We've got about 2 minutes left, and we have to close because people are going to worship. So,
Sure.
Ben, if we would do our final words, that would be great.
Sure. So, you know, as Steve mentioned, we're really directed by the directions that people want to go. So our goal is not to get people out of the military. If they want to stay in the military and just want help resolving issues they have and thinking through issues they have while they stay in the military, the GI Rights Network can potentially help them to do that, depending on the nature of the issue. And also our counselors and staff, if the folks are at Fort Bragg, can help as well. You named one area that I've heard folks talk about a lot, which is through chaplains, really sort of talking about that. And then the other, we get a lot of referrals through various offices within Fort Bragg to our counseling services. We've sort of been very intentional about building up those relationships. So there are those voices there. And if what folks want is to be connected with those and learn more about those, you know, we can do that too. This is not, certainly the work of Quaker House is not to lean on people to leave the military. As Steve mentioned, that really isn't our goal. We're focused on individual conscience. I did see Steve's hand shoot up real quick, so I just want to see if I got that right, because he'll set me straight.
You've got 30 seconds, Bill.
Given the time allowed, I think you got it, Ben. Good job.
All right.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to have to cut this short. I have been reminded more than once that I tend to slide over into worship time, and I do not want to be in trouble this morning either. So I just appreciate so much your being here and coming, and our meeting will be making a $50 donation to your to Quaker House. So in appreciation for your presence with us. So if we could end with a moment of silence, I would very much appreciate this. I think we have lots to consider with this, with your sharing. Thank you.